Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Cover One Roundup here live on the Cover One YouTube channel each and every Monday night, or subsequently wherever you listen to your podcasts. It is I, your reigning, defending, undisputed Cover One Buffalo Bills trivia champion, finally returning after that trivia match, that hard fought, heavily viewed, I may add. Trivia contest from a couple of weeks ago.
And somewhat contested.
See,
at certain points.
At certain points, but I won. So at the end, I didn't care. The indiscrepancies would have been a much bigger deal.
Results over process, right?
Exactly, right? Yeah, exactly. I don't what's the Sean McDermott quote with Nathan Peterman? It's like, I don't regret the decision. I regret the results, which is the opposite for me. But no. I won trivia, and now I'm back to kind of rub it in everyone's face, but no one else is here, so it's just David, who also didn't play. He just hosted, so now I just get to remind David, hey, you know that game that you made up and I won that game. But also...
and you did a great job, superstar.
Thank you. Thanks, Dad. Happy Father's Day. Speaking of David, David, my co-host, is here. David, what's going on?
I'm doing fantastic, Kyle, because this is the last podcast that I'll do. Unfortunately, I'll announce this now because, why not? It's on my mind anyway. But I will not be here for the next 2 weeks because I will be on vacation in Europe. So, hey, if there's any Cover One fans in either the London area or in Italy, hit me up. Maybe we can hang out, talk shop, have a nice beer at a pub. Or maybe not. Or maybe not a beer, because that's they serve those warm, and that sounds disgusting.
Do they?
Well, they serve if my memory is correct, if my knowledge is correct, which it probably isn't, but if it's correct, like the dark beers, right, are served warm, and like lighter beers, like a lager or something, are like might be served cold. It just depends. I don't know.
See, I don't know either. All I know is that I might be dying because of me. Yeah, I only like cold things. I do not like most hot things. I will wait until they are room temperature to no. What am I saying? I don't know what I'm saying. All I know is that cold beer is the only way to go. And also I eat frozen fruit, and my fingers freeze, and I have to run them under hot water afterwards. And that's
do we need to invite Ryan on this podcast to see who has weirder food takes?
Oh no, I have good food takes. I like good food. It's just I eat it weirdly.
You just don't eat it hot.
Right, I eat it weirdly. Cody writes, how do you feel about McDermott being the one that took over plays for the 13 seconds that hurt to hear as a Bills fan? I was telling David off air before we went on that I am not in the best of moods this week, so a lot of people are going to catch strays this week, and Michael Lombardi is certainly going to be one of those people.
Yes.
Just getting online and spreading bullshit, and we will get into all of that as we talk about just a wide variety of Buffalo Bills topics. We're 3 minutes in and I haven't even said what this show's about. It's going to be a rather light episode, I would say, this week. Kind of just, if you guys want to hear us talk about something, put it in chat, and I'm sure we'll bring it up, because the only things we really have to get to in this hour are our reactions to Buffalo Bills minicamp. And look, I'm going to be honest, kind of light on the football news coming out of minicamp, because one, reporters don't get to see all of the football that takes place. Two, a lot of them aren't all that interested in talking about the football that takes place. There were a couple who kind of did talk about the football that was unfolding, that they were allowed to talk about unfolding. But the vast majority of the Buffalo media last week decided that Stefon Diggs is the only thing we're talking about. It's the only thing worth talking about. And then you had other people saying this isn't even a story. So it was just this great dichotomy that we will get into later. And but again, yeah, that's really the only thing we have to talk about this week is minicamp. So again, if you want to hear us talk about anything, put it in the chat and we will talk about that. But before we do that, this show and Cover One in general are brought to you by BetUS, who we will hear about from now via our friend Greg
Hey guys, Cover One is excited to announce our new partnership with BetUS. BetUS has a live wagering on all major games, the best betting variety in the business, and an easy deposit and withdrawal process with the fastest payouts in the industry. Our loyal Cover One fans get a choice between two exclusive offers, either a 125% sign-up bonus on your first deposit up to $2,500 or a free $50 bet with no deposit required. Just use promo code COVER1 on the links provided in the show description below. BetUS, where the game begins.
Thanks, Greg. I don't know if you remember, David, but I beat that guy in trivia a couple of weeks ago.
What, we did trivia?
Yeah, no, we did trivia. He came in second.
Was I there? Was I there?
Yes, and you did pretty good. There were a couple of things. There was like a Price is Right mishap, if I remember correctly. But we all moved on from that. But yeah, that Greg guy.
We all moved on because you're the only one who objected to it, and you won. So
that Greg guy came in second. He gave me a run for my money, but I beat him. And the title, is around the rightful holder's waist, if you will. And speaking of sponsorships, this show and Cover One in general are also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. David, can you tell us a little bit about Underdog?
I would love to tell everyone about my favorite fantasy football website, which I absolutely have the ad read in front of me, and I'm definitely not just going off the top of my head because I've done this a billion times. But Underdog Fantasy allows you, let's say you're somebody who did not draft your favorite quarterback, say a Josh Allen, in your home league this year. That's all right,
not
because in season, I don't care, Kyle. In season, you can use live bets. You can place a bunch of different over-unders. You think Allen to Diggs might blow up this week, like literally blow up, because Stefon Diggs is going to spontaneously combust because of how much he hates Josh Allen. You can bet on whether or not he'll go over his yard totals, his touchdowns, catches, whatever. There's all sorts of things you can do with those sorts of things. If you use the promo code COVER1, that's the number one, when making your first deposit, Underdog will match that deposit up to $100. That is $100 US dollars, even with inflation. That's a pretty good deal. Not like amazing, but pretty good. Pretty good deal. It's better than anything. It's better than anything else.
It is amazing. It's the best deal.
It's better than anything else you're going to get, which I guess technically could be called the best deal. So, thank you to Underdog Fantasy. That's using the promo code COVER1. That's the number one. When signing up to make your first deposit, they'll match it up to $100. Sign up to Underdog Fantasy and start winning today.
Thank you, Underdog and BetUS. Okay, let's get into the actual good stuff.
I keep losing that ad read, and I don't know why. I use it every week, and it's impossible for me to find every single week.
You're just so active on Google Drive is the issue.
I know. I open it once a week, and I can't find this stupid thing.
I love it. No, I'm gonna have to relearn that ad read. I'm
gonna star it. There we go. Now I have it. Now I've got it.
I'm going to have to relearn that ad read for 1 year in Europe. That's not going to be fun. They're going to cancel the sponsorship. If they do watch it, they're going to cancel it. They're going to be like, we can't be having this nitwit reading this idiot. David, you might not come back to a podcast. I just want to forewarn you. You might come back and hear like, I'll
start a new podcast. I'll talk with Eric and Greg. We'll start the David Fox Vanity Hour.
That's fine. That honestly would do better ratings. I would watch that, right?
No. We'll have you on as like a guest, like every week. So it's basically the same podcast. You're just not the actual co-host. So you don't actually get any money. It's just all me.
That's fine. No, I'm getting canceled. This podcast is being burned to the ground while you're in Europe. Let's talk about football, everyone. The Buffalo Bills mandatory minicamp happened this last week. It started on Monday. Technically, they had media day. They came in at like school picture day. And nobody did anything funny, which sucks. That was the thing about school picture day. It was always fun because you always had, your goofy friends, and it was like, oh, who got away with doing something funny in their picture, right? Like who wore the weird pair of glasses, who got away with the weird face. That was always fun. You don't get any of that from NFL media day, really, which is just boring. And then on Tuesday, nothing of note happened. Absolutely nothing of note happened. And then on Wednesday, really nothing of note happened either. The biggest news certainly coming out of Buffalo Bills minicamp is the injuries, right? That's really the main thing we have to talk about is the injuries that unfolded. Dawson Knox is probably the biggest name coming out of minicamp, being injured. He got banged up on a play on Tuesday. And this was going to be a bigger talking point. This was going to be something that I was going to focus on more. I was going to bring up how this obviously isn't something that the Buffalo Bills want to have linger into training camp, or even be a factor in training camp as they do try to install more 12 personnel with Dalton Kincaid, their first round pick. If you do want to build a foundation for 12 personnel, early in your, system building time frame, you're going to need Dawson Knox. You're going to need the, one of the two main important parts of your 12 personnel. You're going to need one of them. But
by the way, watch last week's podcast if you want to know all the ins and outs of 12 personnel and how the Bills can use it and how they should use it. With guest Max Toscano. Anyway, go on, Kyle.
A wonderful program. But they, so Dawson Knox was hurt, but he had his something like his tight end camp at Nazareth College in beautiful Rochester, New York. I think that was today or yesterday or something. I don't know. He had a tight end camp, and he said that the injury is very minor and he is fine. So this presumably is not something that will linger over into training camp. But it does raise the question, David. I have a couple of questions about this Dawson Knox situation, mainly the camp. Do we think that Baby Gronk was at Dawson Knox's tight end camp, and did he riz up Haley Steinfeld when he was at Dawson Knox camp, making him the new Riz King?
You came in hot. You said you weren't in the best of moods, and you came in hot, and now you're going to put me in a bad mood by talking about getting Baby Gronk and being rizzed up.
Did Baby Gronk? I'm
not addressing this. I'm not addressing.
You're not entertaining this.
I'm not. We're not doing this.
Do we think this is the issue?
I refuse to be part of the Dawson Knox industrial complex, or not Dawson Knox, the Baby Gronk industrial complex. It's not happening.
That Stefon Diggs rizzed up Haley Steinfeld. Is that the source of the beef, making him new Drip King?
First of all, I'm not gonna. I said this on Twitter in response to Bruce Nolan tweeting about this. When Stefon Diggs goes for the high five with Josh Allen, he gets it. When he goes to Matt Barkley, or rather when Matt Barkley tries to get a high five, Stefon Diggs left him hanging.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is there beef? Is the real beef between them? Did Barkley sell him a bunch of Bitcoin and now he's just in the tubes for it?
Shit, that's good. That's a good.
Who's to say? Who's to say?
Oh, damn, that's a good take. I hadn't thought about that one. That sucks.
This is why you come to the Cover One Roundup, folks, for these galaxy brain takes about Matt Barkley, Stefon Diggs cryptocurrency beef.
And it sucks because if you have to choose one, you do have to go with Barkley because he's been around longer.
Yeah.
He's Josh's guy. They go golfing. I've never seen Stefon Diggs and Josh Allen go golfing. And if we know one thing about building the Buffalo Bills is you need friends of Josh.
That's right.
That's
just like how you're building an NFL franchise. You go to the directory and you're like, all right, who's a friend of Sean McVay?
Mm-hmm.
Or just like a Kyle Shanahan disciple, one of those two. Because McVay was a Shanahan disciple, though he was like a Mike Shanahan disciple, not a Kyle Shanahan guy. But still, same sort of thing. It's a quick sidebar, which is like a sidebar of a sidebar at this point. But I sometimes think about, this has been brought up on Twitter before, that Washington staff from the early 2010s.
Yeah.
When the Shanahans were there. So you had Kyle Shanahan, you had Matt LaFleur, you had Sean McVay.
You had Mike McDaniel.
Mike McDaniel, that's right. Yeah, it's just what was this franchise doing that you had all this offensive brain power?
Sexual harassment.
And, well, yes, we know that.
Oh.
But does that really bleed onto the field, Kyle?
I don't know. I don't think so. I hope not.
Again, who's to say? But it's just How do you have that much coaching firepower at your disposal and you just do nothing with it?
Hey, they got Ron Rivera now. You know what? I like Ron Rivera. I'm not even anti-Ron Rivera.
I respect Ron Rivera greatly as a person and as a human being and as a leader. As a football coach, he is mid at best.
Oh, no. I love him just because I would love that career path. I would love to just be aggressively mediocre at my job.
He's been a head coach for 12 straight seasons now, I think. Something like that with 2 different franchises. And had 3 winning seasons.
Yeah, a handful of winning seasons. A Super Bowl appearance. Good for him. That's more than Sean McDermott has.
Well, a Super Bowl appearance that was largely due to the fact that Sean McDermott was running his defense.
No, we don't need that. We don't need narratives. We don't need pro McDermott narratives on a Buffalo Bills show. Roy Collins writes, Riverboat Rod sinks ships. Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, I would love to just be aggressively mediocre, like the most not even bog standard, just the most milquetoast coach in the NFL. Completely fine, completely acceptable, not gonna, be terrible, not gonna be great, and just be praised as though I am one of the best. I would love to.
This Roy actually brings up a very good point. I mean, I'll bring up a good point based on this particular point. But Riverboat Ron, like he earned that nickname, I think in 2012 or was it 2013? I think it was probably 2013 because he got hired in 2011. So yeah, 2013. 2013, his job was on the line. They start off super slow. They fire their GM instead of the head coach. They fire Marty Herney partway through the season. Basically to say, like, someone's got to go. Someone's got to take the blame for this. And it's apparently not going to be the head coach. It's going to be the GM. We're just going to fire our GM in the middle of the season. Right.
Yeah.
So
you know what? It works.
Then Ron Rivera, knowing that he's on the hot seat, suddenly starts going for it on 4th down a lot. And he earns the nickname Riverboat Ron because he's just gambling on 4th down a bunch. And all these, NFL guys are like, oh yeah, love that. Love the aggression. Love all this, He's doing what's best for his team. And now you fast forward 10 years or so, and we're having all these debates about 4th down and whether you should do it or not. But it's the same people who praised Riverboat Ron for doing it because he was trusting his gut, as opposed to now those same people are criticizing it. Well, you can't coach from a spreadsheet. You can't. It doesn't take. There's no context for this. There's no context for this. It's just like if this guy said, "I'm just going to do this because I want to do it." Those same guys would be like, "Oh yeah, I play for that guy. That dude just knows what he's doing. He's great. He's got it." And it's just like, but as soon as you say, like, well, statistically speaking, you have this evidence that says going for it on 4th down in this situation is probably a good idea versus taking a field goal versus punting in opponent territory. And suddenly it's like, oh well, this isn't football. This is just this is numbers, and you can't do that with football. Stupid. Anyway. This is what happens when we come up with what we're going to do for this podcast like 2 hours ago.
Right, yeah. When
we just sort of go off on tangents.
Hey, we got an hour to fill here. Like
I
said, if y'all want to hear us talk about anything in the chat, we're more than happy to talk about it. Is this the Ron Rivera show? It was. You just missed great Ron Rivera talk. But now we are going to transition.
One Roundup, where you come for your Ron Rivera discourse.
And we are the #1 Commanders podcast. Would that be hard?
Honestly, we probably could become the #1.
If we do a Commanders segment every week, how long would it take us to become the #1 Commanders podcast? That's no disrespect. I'm sure there are great Commanders podcasts. I just don't care about the Commanders.
Listen, honestly, if there are still Washington fans after all the stuff that they've gone through, good for them. Good for you for sticking with it. Hopefully things turn around for you, buddy.
Hey, they just got bought by the founder of Fanatics, a notoriously great sports clothing line. So good. Hey, good on you. Good luck, Washington. So, okay, more injuries before we get into Diggs stuff. Speaking of stupid talk, we'll get into Diggs in a couple of seconds. But more injury stuff. Von Miller had his pass rush summit recently. He said that his ACL is healed and that he's just waiting to get back into football stuff. So what? Week 6 for Von?
I mean, at least, right? I love Von Miller. I love that he's on this team. Honestly, watching Von Miller play for the Bills last year was such a treat because he legitimately was that guy. It really felt like watching that first year with Stefon Diggs, where it was like, oh, that's what it's like to have that type of guy on your team. It was the same sort of thing with Von Miller, where like that first Kansas City game, he made like 4 or 5 different plays that were just like, the Bills don't win this game if he's not playing in this game. And then you have that Jets game where the Jets are in the red zone and he forces the fumble of Zach Wilson. And it's like, that's what you get Von Miller for. And then Josh Allen turned it over literally the play after. But like that was sort of what it was. And so, I love having Von Miller on this team. I love his energy. I love his enthusiasm. Also, don't take anything he says that seriously. Just like temper your expectations. He wants to be back week 1. I get that. I support that. I believe in you. I believe in you, Vaughn. But also, like, you're probably going to be back like week 6, 8, maybe 10.
Right.
And that's fine. That's fine.
He said he's just
There's
waiting.
nothing wrong with that.
He's just waiting to get back to football stuff. And he did sideline work at minicamp. So I think that kind of gives you insight into where he is. But yeah, no, he'll be back when he's ready, which is going to be great. Just I doubt it'll be week 1.
I would rather Vaughn be back for the playoffs than, some garbage game that they'll win by 30 points.
Right.
Or whatever.
They're not going to win any games by 30 points, David. I don't know if you know, the Bills are bad. Josh Allen stinks. Sean McDermott's a bad coach. And also Stefon Diggs hates him, and they stink. Okay. Justin Shorter also did a lot of sideline work, according to reporters in attendance. Which
that's your guy.
That's my guy. I like Justin Shorter a lot. I was kind of praising my after the whole Diggs stuff. I made a tweet. I was like, my Justin Shorter dynasty shares are looking great, and then he doesn't do anything. So really cool. Okay, we'd be remiss not to talk about the Stefon Diggs situation.
Yes.
Is it a situation? I don't know. We will let you guys be the judge. So here's what happened. We will give you the facts. We will give you what we know. We will not butt in with our thoughts on it because I think anyone who claims to know
I won't promise that, but sure.
No, we will. We will get to our thoughts. But just when we kind of lay out, the lay of the land, if you will.
I got you.
I think there are a lot of people who are trying to speak authoritatively on this subject, and they know nothing, right? You have people appearing on podcasts and writing articles as though they have inside information that they do not have, and they are wildly speculating and spreading misinformation. And we will get into all of that momentarily. But again, just here's what happened. Stefon Diggs, reports to Orchard Park last weekend, is in the facility presumably that weekend, either on Sunday or Monday, maybe both days. He is in the facility. Tuesday, first day of mandatory minicamp happens. He shows up in the morning, leaves, does not participate in the first day of mandatory minicamp practice. Sean McDermott gets on the microphone, says he is very concerned because that Stefon Diggs is not there. Josh Allen, after practice, talks to the media and just kind of gives a medley of answers. He is asked a wide range of questions, and he just kind of gives a bunch of different answers. Says it's not football related, says that he loves him, says that he can do better, says that the entire organization can do a better job of communicating. Von Miller then talks and says it's not a big deal, no fewer than 500 times. It's not a big deal. But again, this is Von Miller. But okay, so Von Miller says it's not a big deal. Stefon Diggs, the next day on Wednesday, does show up to practice. And he practices, does not talk to the media. Sean McDermott does talk to the media and says, I was concerned because he wasn't here, but it was an excused absence. Just like, what? So just like very weird. Very weird. So there are a number of things I want to talk about regarding this Diggs situation. So I'll just kind of pose a number of questions to you, David, and you take it in whatever direction you want to take it in. What do we say about this? Is this resolved? Is this even something to be concerned about at all? And how do we feel? How does this change our opinion about A, Sean McDermott, B, Stefon Diggs, and just C, the state of the organization?
So to say that it's nothing is kind of not true. Like it's something. It's just a matter of like, is it really the big kind of catastrophic deal that a lot of the beat is saying it is? Probably not. Because if it were, he probably just wouldn't have shown up to minicamp at all. Right? Like if there was really a problem where they just couldn't work something out, or at the very least go about this as professionals, like, look, we're on the same team. I'm not gonna, kind of push for more money because I got a bunch of money last year, right? And that is something we know, right? This is not about money. So you don't need to worry about Diggs being traded or anything like that. This is not a Tyreek Hill situation. This is not a Devontae Adams situation. This is just one of these things where if there's actually, no, I was about to compare this to T.O. in Philadelphia, but it's kind of like that, but it's not. So it's like part of the if you don't know what happened with T.O. in Philadelphia, first of all, go look at the secret base video about that with T.O. versus McNabb. I think it's called Beef History, which is a great
good title.
It's a great series that they do. There's a lot of great videos. If you don't know what secret base is, just look it up. You'll have the time of your life just coming through the most random stuff about football and sports. It's great. But they did a video about T.O. versus McNabb, and like at first they were great because McNabb just like basically gave T.O. his career year in his first year in Philly. Like they were like that. They were great. They were doing great. And then T.O. broke his leg before the regular season was over, did a whole bunch of rehab so he could get to the Super Bowl. The Eagles actually made it to the Super Bowl against the Patriots. There was all this story about T.O. using a hyperbaric chamber, which is like a oxygen chamber, basically, that like doubles the oxygen that you would normally intake. It kind of speeds up the process of healing. I don't know how real that is, but it was a story back then.
That sounds like a Star Wars thing.
It does.
Put them in the bathtub. Like what?
But it was the whole thing. And T.O. had a great game in that Super Bowl on a broken leg that was like, obviously not healed to the point where it probably should be. He had like 13 catches or something against a good Patriots defense and was great. But then he criticized McNabb for like throwing up during the game, and McNabb was like, I didn't throw up during the game, even though there's like footage of him throwing up during the game. It's very classic McNabb. And just sort of like saying crap and hoping nobody would find out.
Right. So it's like Eric Stahl saying, I've never worn, this is a hockey thing, but like Eric Stahl this year was like, I've never worn a Pride jersey. And people were like, Eric, we have numerous photos of you wearing Pride jerseys. Your Pride jerseys have been sold. There are people out there who own Eric Stahl Pride jerseys that you have worn. And he's like, no, I've never done that. Continue.
So then in the offseason, T.O. wanted, there was beef between him and McNabb. And then he wanted a new contract. And then his agent at the time was Drew Rosenhaus. And of course, Drew Rosenhaus was, somebody who would get you the money, right? Like he is Jerry Maguire, basically, except he's actually good at his job. And so then it became T.O. was holding out in training camp. And then he did this like workout in the driveway of his Mount Laurel, New Jersey home. There was like a helicopter over the neighborhood. Like he's just like doing his crunches and people are interviewing. It's one of the most ridiculous things in the world. It's amazing. And then week 1 shows up. He has no new contract. And I want to say I think that at some point, I can't remember if it was later in the regular season or maybe like during the preseason where Andy Reid suspended him for conduct detrimental to the team. But he showed up week 1. Him and McNabb hooked up like 10 or 12 times in that game against Atlanta. They win the game. They don't really say much to each other. They don't really do anything. And they had a great game. And honestly, if that's what happens with Josh Allen and Stefon Diggs, I'm okay with that. If you show up and you're going to just be wide receiver 1 and you're going to be that guy, it's cool that like Stefon Diggs and Josh Allen were best friends. It was a nice little thing to have, but like if they're not, so be it. Like I don't really care about that aspect of this. What I care about is winning football games as a fan of a particular football franchise. Specifically the Buffalo Bills, where Stefon Diggs and Josh Allen play. And like, look, Stefon Diggs has a reason to be mad at Josh Allen because Josh Allen played like garbage in that Bengals game. And Stefon Diggs was right to call him out. I mean, nobody should be above like the system. Nobody should be above the process, right?
Right.
Where like there's a reason why Stefon Diggs has that captain emblem on his jersey. It's because he is a leader, and leaders not only, bring up the guys that don't have the emblem, but they should be able to call out guys who do have the emblem. Like there's a reason for him to be upset. And I understand if, he got to minicamp and he looked at, let me be clear. This is now me speculating. I have no reason. I have no facts. I have nothing behind this other than just my own pure speculation based on what transpired in the last half of the season. So let me make that very clear. But if he is upset by something he saw in the playbook or sort of the plan they had for him this year, which sort of, takes away targets from him, which was sort of his issue at the end of last year, which seems to be something that's pretty widely reported that he was upset with his target share.
We'll get into that.
He probably talked about it. He probably said, I don't like this. I don't really want to do this. This seems like something we shouldn't be doing. I feel like we were winning in the other way that we were doing things. He probably just wasn't in a good headspace to just go out into minicamp and then talk to the media after practice, which is fine. And that's probably why he was excused. And then McDermott gets up on the podium and says, I'm very concerned that Stefon Diggs isn't there, because Sean McDermott says that about like any time that somebody isn't an important player isn't part of practice, right? Because practice means a lot to Sean McDermott, as it does to most NFL coaches. And Sean McDermott, like most NFL coaches do, gives a lot of canned responses because he knows that no matter what he says, it'll be used against him in the media. And that's exactly what happened. Unfortunately, this was not a great McDermott canned response, because you should have just said, we'll just talk about it later. I expect him to be here at some point or something like that, right? But it is what it is. I think it was. Speaking of other major Philly athletes, we talking about practice.
We're in the middle of a game.
That's right. But yeah, I think it was just a sort of odd combination of course, Stefon Diggs not being here and all the drama preceding that from the Bengals game onward, and him not talking to the media after that game. With McDermott saying, I'm very concerned, but then, being excused from practice, it was just sort of odd mixed signals. And when you're a fan base that has been waiting for a long time for any sign of positive response from Stefon Diggs, for that combination of things to be the first thing that you get is sort of like, well, everything's over and we're done. We're the season's over. We're onion rings. Like it's
right.
Yeah. So I think that it is overall an overreaction to something that is real, but doesn't require this doomer level response.
I agree. I'm going to say a couple of things here. To start, I agree, right? I don't think it's nothing, right? It's not nothing. It is certainly something. It is the fact that Stefon Diggs was there and actively chose not to participate in a day of practice. It's weird, and it's something that needs to be talked about. But just how it launched this baseless speculation on a national level. Like, it got to the point where, like, look, I'm not going to sit here and speculate what I think set Diggs off, what I think is the reason why he did not participate in practice, why Josh Allen gave that strange answer, why Sean McDermott said he was very confused, because nobody knows, right? Nobody truly knows what happened, and it would be irresponsible of me to sit here. It's irresponsible of anybody with any sort of platform and a microphone to, even if it is just us talking to a webcam on YouTube, it's irresponsible to speculate and kind of put more false narratives out there when we don't really know what happened. But like, I think generally speaking, I guess common sentiment right now is that he was just unhappy with his role in the offense at the end of last year and potentially, like you said, David, potentially going into this year, which, like, yeah, we all saw him at the end of last year. We saw how frustrated that he was. Like, he was every week frustrated. Like, this isn't
And he should have been.
Right. This isn't news. So, like, again, it's not nothing. It is something to talk about him skipping practice, but also I think generally speaking, it was not a big issue that was blown up into a much bigger issue by this 24/7 constant media coverage, constant, trying to generate clicks journalism. Like, and that's what my bigger rant is going to be with journalism as a whole and people just saying bullshit and just
Kyle's taking on the journos.
I know just how the practice of journalism has devolved into just this nonsense. Like, I'm saying this not as someone who is frustrated by the coverage of Stefon Diggs. I'm saying this as someone who went to journalism school. Just like how this has devolved. Like, you have guys like Keyshawn Johnson, who, like, again, national media paid by ESPN, who comes out and says his problem might be with Ken Dorsey. And that is quickly, is said to not be the case. And it's just like, so then what were you talking about? Like, why did you get on that platform if you obviously do not have the information? Why do you just get on and baselessly speculate and just add nonsense to this narrative that is quickly just dispelled upon, but not everyone is going to see that it's been dispelled. So, like, now that's just more nonsense. Like, oh, maybe he has an issue with Ken Dorsey. And, like, I had a friend call me and, like, think that, like, I saw people talking, like, somebody tweeted like maybe his issue was with a contract restructure, and it's like, that's not something that can have, like, he obviously had his contract restructured, but like not in a way that affects anything. And it's just like people are tweeting it's about
he got
money.
More money now because of the contract restructure. Like, come on.
And it's just like, and people are using, again, this has kind of sparked a much bigger rant, but like with Stefon Diggs using, again, the anti-McDermott people are using this as even more fuel to the fire for their anti-McDermott narrative. He's actually a bad coach. And like, you have Michael Lombardi doing exactly what I'm doing right now, just saying bullshit into a webcam. He gets on Pat McAfee and just says, Sean McDermott actually took over the 13-second play call, and he's the reason why they lost or whatever. And again, just numerous people who actually know just get on and they're like, no, that actually didn't happen. And it's like, okay, so like, yes, if you actually take the time and do the further research into it, no, Sean McDermott did not.
If you take the minute and a half it takes to go on Google or use Twitter search to just find out, hey, did Sean McDermott actually take over the defensive play calling during those 13 seconds? The answer is pretty definitively no. And it's like, great, moving on. But then Michael Lombardi comes on and he's like, oh, well, he took over the defensive play. I was like, what does that even mean? Like, what is that? What does that mean? Like, I don't understand. Like,
he didn't, but like, he's not going to go back on Pat McAfee, back onto the hundreds of thousands of people who
he's going to go back to he's going to go back to his garbage 3013 website. He's going to curate a bunch of stupid content creators to spit out a bunch of bullshit on that website. I hate 3013. I'm sorry, I do. I've had a lot of wine, so I'm taking this on.
It's so frustrating. And just, again, yes, this is definitely something. And like I kind of ragged on the media earlier for not really reporting on football at minicamp. And it's just like there's only so much you can really are allowed to report on, right? And so it's like Diggs not being there for a day certainly was the biggest story. I understand why the beat attacked minicamp in that way. As someone who used to be in that game, right? Like I'm familiar with your game. As someone who was in that game, I understand why that was the story. But that doesn't change the fact that, like, one, it's probably not as big of a deal as it was made out to be. And two, the 24/7 media cycle got a hold of it and turned it into something that it is not. Turn it into not only much bigger of a deal than it is, but something that it is not entirely. And as people have said in the chat here, just like, where is this? Roy Collins had a good comment. I can't find it, but Roy Collins said earlier, oh, here we go. Diggs will be on the field week 1. For me, that's all that matters. Exactly. Yep. Diggs is going to be there come week 1. And again, like you said, David, I don't need Josh Allen and Stefon. Like, even again, it's all speculation right now that there is a rift, right? Like that they do have genuine beef. But even if they do, even if they don't play Warzone with each other anymore, even if they never appear on the cover of Sports Illustrated Kids with each other again, I don't give a shit. I don't need them to be friends. I need them to come to work every week and play well with each other and win football games. That's what they're being paid to do. I don't care if they don't talk, right? Like, I don't care if Josh Allen and Stefon Diggs go golfing with each other. I don't need that to happen. I need them to play football. And if they do that and do that well, that's all that matters.
Yeah. I mean, we're here to play football. We're here to win football games. You do that by having somebody like Stefon Diggs, who is objectively one of the best players at his position, period. I mean, cut and dry. There's few guys who are able to beat what Stefon Diggs does. And this is in an era where we have so many top-tier wide receivers for him to compete against. And you ask pretty much anyone that are wide receiver guys, that are fantasy guys, that are just regular football guys, Stefon Diggs is up there. He's one of the, 15 or 20 receivers that you put into a top 5 wide receiver category, right? Like that's where you're at with him. But what matters is he's going to be on this team. That's what matters. There's no out for him. Like, the Bills are not going to trade Stefon Diggs, because if they do, they're basically saying, all right, we'll worry about 2024. Our season, 2024 is going to be our season, not 2023. That would be what they were saying. And they're not going to do that because they obviously believe in 2023 because of the way that they've gone about their entire offseason.
And they can't trade the contract.
They can't trade it. Hold on, let's be clear. They could technically trade Stefon Diggs. That is a thing that they could do. But they would incur so much dead cap money for Stefon Diggs to not be on this team. They would pay so much money for Stefon Diggs to not be on this team that it makes legitimately 0 sense for this team right now.
Right. They would be shooting themselves in both feet, right? Like, not only like, oh, get rid of Diggs, bang, $40 million in dead cap, bang. Just like, again, I think it is lesser now that it is past June 1st, right? The dead cap wouldn't be as steep, but regardless, we're not talking about this. We're not entertaining the conversation. Right. They're not trading Stefon Diggs. Regardless. But again, people have, used this as an anti-McDermott talking point, as a springboard for their anti-McDermott narrative, because he didn't defend the player immediately, which, like, I can see how you'd be frustrated, right? Like, in a time for a coach that gives as many canned answers and as many cliched answers as he does, for that to be the time he doesn't give a canned cliche answer, just like, Sean. But also, I do think he, generally speaking, kind of did better on Wednesday than he did on Tuesday. I just maybe liked, the quality of his responses to be more spread out throughout the 2 days. But, like, I don't know. The anti-Bills media has been crazy. The last, I sound stupid. I sound really stupid. Just like this anti-Bills. I'm like I'm the RFK of Bills podcasting right now. Just like anti-Bills, whatever. But no, like the media is not out to get the Bills. But like, there's a lot of anti-McDermott sentiment. David, I am doing a sharp left right now, but the media, right? The online NFL fans, I have at every possible turn, right? I have voiced love for Garrett Wilson on this podcast.
Yes, you have.
Twitter's going to make me hate Garrett Wilson because I have seen people tweeting in recent weeks, recent days, that Garrett Wilson is a top 5 NFL receiver. And it's like
right now,
right? Like we have you're missing the point. Like if you are saying that Garrett Wilson is a top 5 receiver right now, you have lost the plot. You have missed the entire talking point. Like we're not going to stay on this too long, but it's like we went from Garrett Wilson had a very good rookie year to Garrett Wilson could be very good with Aaron Rodgers to he could be a top 5 receiver with Aaron Rodgers to he already is a top 5 receiver. Like what? Like how did we go? It hasn't even been. We haven't seen him take a snap, and the narrative has shifted rapidly. I love it.
It's amazing, just like how quickly things change in the off season in particular, because we're just left to our own devices, literally and figuratively. To just sort of speculate wildly. We're just here. We're like, we keep running through our own little scenarios. We keep thinking about, roster construction and projection and all this sorts of stuff. And it's just sort of like at a certain point, we just get, it's really just sort of like cabin fever, stir craziness, where it's just like, we need something to start and actually happen, whether that's yet another Isaiah McKenzie looks great in training camp type of scenario.
We're talking about Deontay Hardy here soon,
to be fair, I feel a lot better about Deontay Hardy than I do about Isaiah McKenzie, but that's neither here nor there. Until we get to Deontay Hardy talk.
We'll get to Deontay Hardy talk.
It's just, it's really just about like we're in this dead zone. It's literally the middle of June. Right. Nothing is happening. There's no major transactions. There's no trades that are going to happen. Minicamp is already wrapped up. We're just waiting on training camp to start at the end of July. So we're kind of just here to talk about this sort of stuff. And when you have a 24-hour news cycle like professional football does, it's, you kind of get latched onto these kind of stupid narratives. And, again, like there's something to talk about with Stefon Diggs not being there that first day, and there's something to talk, especially given the way that season ended. But is it really the giant rift that could like sink the Bills ship in 2023? Probably not. Right? Like based on all the evidence in front of us, probably not.
Right, Colin. Are we honestly going to go through an entire podcast and not talk about the USFL playoffs? We're not. We are going to talk about the CFL, though. I watched Toronto Argonauts versus Hamilton Tiger Cats yesterday. Swag Kelly, man. Swag Kelly's got that it factor. Dude was balling. Okay.
Sure.
Let's move on. So actual football took place at not training camp. It was mandatory minicamp last week. And as I said, reporters were kind of limited in what they could see and even more limited in what they could talk about. And most of them were talking about Stefon Diggs. But, you did have a few reporters actually tweeting about football. Alex Brasky, is it, from Batavia Daily News or whatever? Right. He was on a Cover One show last week, and he was actually tweeting about football. So thank you, Alex. And so one of the things that he kind of noted coming out of minicamp that I thought was interesting was CB2 does not appear to be as set in stone as maybe we anticipated it would be at this point, right? Like, given how Tre'Davious White looked at the end of the year, and all early reports are that Tre'Davious White has looked good here early at the start of early offseason workouts. So White obviously a CB1. And given how Elam looked at the end of last year, it was kind of expected, like he was the first round pick. He didn't look bad to close out the year. It's kind of going to be Kyer Elam's job, unless something drastic happens. But apparently, according to people who are there, it is a relatively close competition between Kyer Elam, Christian Benford, and Dane Jackson, with maybe even Dane Jackson having a leg up. This is wild, right? And like the conversation surrounding Kyer Elam in recent weeks has been wild. Because like I've said, right, we're kind of just ranting about journalism in general, but you had an Athletic article come out last week kind of suggesting, like, I don't think it's going to happen, but maybe Kyer Elam could be somebody who could be traded. And it's like, wait, what? Like, what?
Yeah.
People get bored is the thing, is people get bored and people just kind of come up with ideas. But like, David, do you think this is something? Again, we just talked about, is Stefon Diggs something or nothing? Is there a CB2 competition, or is it just kind of Kyer Elam's going to be the guy?
I mean, I feel like there's clearly a competition, and I don't think that's a bad thing because, I mean, you're right in that Kyer Elam finished the season fairly well. But I also think that, like, I don't think he was, like, very clear-cut, like, oh, yeah, he's totally figured it out. He's unlocked it. He's going to be amazing, fantastic, amazing, whatever. And somebody like Dane Jackson, who obviously was sort of the brunt of a lot of Bills Twitter, etc., or Bills fandom in general. Like, oh, they need to bench Dane Jackson. And it's like, Dane Jackson is fine. Dane Jackson is not anything overly special. Level. He is fine because he's a 7th round pick from Pitt, and he's fine. Like, there's nothing terrible about him. There are far worse corners in the NFL than Dane Jackson. He is, like you said, replacement level, where, like, you can get by, you can do what you need to do with Dane Jackson. But for me, I'm much more interested in watching somebody like Christian Benford or Kyer Elam. Frankly, I don't see the point in, like, giving Dane Jackson a bunch of more reps at that sort of CB2 spot over Christian Benford or Kyer Elam, because they're younger players. They're both in their second year. Dane Jackson knows this defense, even with whatever changes Sean McDermott may or may not bring as the de facto defensive coordinator. He knows this defense. He's been on this team. Like, he's been in the league for, this is his 4th year, 5th year, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's not like he's some young pup. Like, you gotta bring your young guys along. You gotta kind of throw them to the fire, especially at corner, which is a volatile position that is not necessarily something that has overly consistent play year to year. When you look at players, right? Like, it's a position that gets so many reps and so many reps for and against you. It's a very tricky position to play at a high level year in and year out. It just is. So I think that getting your young guys more reps is more important than giving Dane Jackson reps during these sorts of off-season workouts. So that's my main issue with this. I would rather see Kyer Elam just, get more reps than Dane Jackson would. I don't want to necessarily just hand a position over to anyone in particular. And I think that's kind of what they're trying to avoid, right? Is by, playing with Dane Jackson early and then kind of forcing Elam and or Benford to really push and jockey for that spot. I think that's fine, but I would just much rather try and see what you have with Elam or Benford and go from there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I'm of two minds, right? Like, look, the chat is having some very great conversations right now. Like, competition's a good thing. Who said, here we go, our secondary is stacked. Yeah, the Bills do have a lot of depth at cornerback, right? Like, it is cool that the Bills have 3 guys competing for CB2 right now: Kyer Elam, Dane Jackson, Christian Benford. I think And I don't think it's going to be much of a story ultimately. I think Kyer Elam is going to win that job. But, should that not happen, I'm fine with any of them being CB2 come week 1. It's the middle of June, right? A lot can change between now and then. But as of right now, I am fine with any one of them ultimately winning that starting job. But as RJ writes here, I guess I don't get why Elam is having an issue getting that CB2 job, right? Like, we're talking about this competition between Dane Jackson, who was a 7th round pick, replacement level, has been with the team for 4 or 5 years at this point. Christian Benford, who was a 6th round pick out of Villanova last year, and Kyer Elam, SEC 1st round draft pick, right? Like, this on paper should not be a competition, but it consistently is, right? They just won't give Kyer Elam the ball and run with it. And I guess, like RJ, I'm just in this state right now where I want to know why. Maybe it is just an instance of them, like you said, David, not wanting to just give him the job, right? Maybe they are holding him to a higher standard than they are a Dane Jackson or a Christian Benford just because they expect more out of him, right? They're like, you were the 1st round pick. You played at Florida. You had, all this draft hype. You were a 1st round draft pick, right? We invested a lot into you. So we thus expect more from you, and we are going to hold you to a higher standard. So maybe, they're trying to create some adversity for Kyer Elam, if you will. But at the end of the day, you play the best player. And if I think it is going to end up being Elam, but if it's not, whatever. And then John Herring writes, Benford is overperforming. And that happens sometimes, right? Sometimes it's just dudes. Elam might not be as good as he was advertised as. Benford might be a lot better than he was advertised as, right? Like, you play the best player. I'm fine with whoever that best player ends up being. Moving on here, we said we were going to do some Deontay Hardy talk. Alex Brasky also tweeted on Tuesday when Diggs was out that Deontay Hardy, Trent Sherfield, and Khalil Shakir impressed, getting some first team reps with Josh Allen. Look, we could talk about any of these 3. I don't really want to talk about Trent Sherfield because, Diggs is going to come back. Trent Sherfield, I think, is going to be ultimately far down the pecking order when it comes to receiving options for Josh Allen. Just that's, through no fault of his own, right? But they have Stefon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, Deontay Hardy, Khalil Shakir. That's just that receiver. And then Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid, right? So that's Sherfield is receiver or pass catcher 7. Like, I don't want to spend much time talking about Trent Sherfield impressing at minicamp. I think he'll be a good special teamer. I do want to talk about Deontay Hardy because I feel like there has been a little bit of a Hardy hive here in the last couple of weeks. I think Greg and Aaron did a segment last week where they talked about Deontay Hardy potentially ending the team 3rd in targets, or ending 3rd in targets on the team at the end of next season. That seems like pretty high expectations for a dude in the first year in his offense who does not have a ton of NFL experience or production. Is this a case of people are kind of setting themselves up for disappointment and failure here with Deontay Hardy, or are we genuinely excited?
I'm genuinely excited for Deontay Hardy because I remember the day that the Bills signed him. There were a lot of analytically inclined people who were like, this is a great signing because he has been so productive whenever he gets the ball, which is not very often. But whenever he gets the ball, he just makes plays and makes a lot out of his touches. And I think for a team that really lacked a lot of depth at wide receiver last year, right? Like, Stefon Diggs obviously is who he is. Gabe Davis, we're not getting into Gabe Davis talk tonight. We're just not. But Gabe Davis is a perfectly capable receiver. Outside of that, it was kind of just nothing else at wide receiver. So now you have guys like Trent Sherfield, you have Deontay Hardy, you have Justin Shorter, you have, of course, Dalton Kincaid, who's not really a wide receiver, but not really a tight end.
Boy.
But somebody like Deontay Hardy allows for actual depth and for Just explosive plays because of his speed, because of his agility. Like this, it's a different dynamic that this Bills wide receiver core doesn't really have a lot of, right? Like Gabe Davis and Justin Shorter are kind of similar in what they do. Trent Sherfield is a depth receiver, special teams type of guy who has a lot of athletic ability, but is ultimately just a depth guy. And Diggs is who he is. Hardy brings something different to the table. He brings a lot of speed and agility that the other guys don't necessarily have in the way that he has. So I think that there's a way where, if he's getting similar targets to what Isaiah McKenzie got last year, I think you will find much more consistency and production from Deontay Hardy than what the Bills got out of Isaiah McKenzie.
Yeah, and Hardy does bring some inside-outside versatility, though I'm not sure how often you want to be lining up. How tall is he? 5'6"?
There's no reason to put him outside consistently.
I don't think that you want to be doing that consistently. But Roy Collins writes regarding the Greg and Aaron segment last week. Third in targets amongst wide receivers, just not amongst all players in general. Even then, that seems a little bit steep, especially when considering the next player who I want to bring up here, and we might piss off Shakir Hive. Khalil Shakir, another player that I am of two minds on, right? Like, I could see him being the slot option when Dalton Kincaid is not on the field. I could see that being, him being the slot 1B, if you will. I can also see him fighting for playing time and not being an every week active. Right. Like I do not know what to expect out of Khalil Shakir. And he is, again, I'm glad, right, that he's really impressed with, as a pass catcher, every opportunity he has impressed, but he's kind of left some things to be desired as a blocker and in other facets of the game, which is kind of why he hasn't been consistently utilized. But I am glad that at every opportunity that he has had thus far to impress as a pass catcher, he has done so. He is a guy that is maybe top 5 most interesting to watch at training camp, right? I'm sure that is a podcast that we will do later in the summer, but he is definitely a player to keep an eye on in training camp, just because his role varies from weekly contributor to bottom of the roster, right? Like there's going to be people who are saying, no, he's a roster lock. We'll see how it shakes out. We will see how this roster shakes out. I think he'll make it, don't get me wrong, but I could see an instance in which Khalil Shakir kind of is struggling there.
It's a crowded wide receiver room.
Yeah.
And part of the problem with Khalil Shakir is, unlike someone like Trent Sherfield, he's not a special teams guy in that you're going to put him at gunner. Right? Like you could put him at returner, maybe, but you also have guys like Deontay Hardy who can do that.
Right. Shakir is just he's a nice player to have, is the issue.
Right.
Like, you like him, but like he doesn't do anything exceptionally
So then you
well.
have Diggs, you have Davis, you have Hardy, you have Shorter, you have Sherfield.
Is Shorter a roster lock? I don't know. With the new special teams rules, I don't know if Shorter's
Shorter plays special teams though. That was like his thing in college, or not like his thing, but like that was something that he did in college quite well. He was that, like, this was the thing about Justin Shorter. He was like the number 1 recruit when he came out in high school, played at different colleges. Mm-hmm. Nobody has ever said like, oh, this is somebody who just like doesn't have his head on straight, or he doesn't do like the hard work. Like, this is a guy who plays on special teams and is okay with playing on special teams. This is a guy whose work ethic seems to be pretty high, who seems to have a decent athletic ability, just for whatever reason. Maybe it's just because he played at Penn State and then Florida, and those quarterback situations are not the best. But, like, it's just somebody who didn't produce in college the way that, like, statistically speaking, he probably should have. And it's not a lack of, like, willingness to do other things that are not at wide receiver. He's played special teams, and that, I think, already gives him a leg up on Khalil Shakir. So, I mean, is this team going to roster 6 wide receivers? when they're
know.
probably also going to roster 3 tight ends and a fullback?
It's gonna be interesting. It's really going to be interesting. We are going to have a lot of interesting Khalil Shakir discussions, I am sure. And again, I want
real quick, Beta Jim 22. By the way, get a new nickname. Justice Shorter had an injury in college. That is important to
numerous
to
injuries.
point out.
Yeah,
numerous injuries in college. That is important.
Yeah, like no, I definitely want Justin Shorter to make the roster. Do not get me wrong. I wrote a whole article. I've done numerous. I have been maybe one of the biggest drivers of the Justin Shorter bandwagon since they have drafted him.
This is your new Laviska Shenault.
Maybe he is. But Shorter is a draft pick. He's going to make the team. They've cut draft picks before. Again, don't get me wrong. I want him to make the team. I just don't know if he is 100% a roster lock as of June 19th. I think he'll make it. I cannot say for certain. Does that wrap up the show?
Pretty much. I will say, I know in our notes we don't have this in here. But I'm gonna do it anyway because I thought of it and I think it's gonna be pretty funny.
Okay.
Folks, welcome to a switcheroo because it's my turn to play True or Rubbish with Kyle.
Let's go.
Oh no! Uh-oh. I'm excited. I'm genuinely excited.
You shouldn't be. It's gonna be 2 very dumb statements.
Okay.
So and then we'll wrap it up after this.
Okay.
All right. Kyle. True or rubbish? Recently you went to a bar and a certain patron at that bar did not ask you, just said 2 miles of road, 4 miles of parking lot. True or rubbish?
That is true. That is absolutely 100% true.
I can't believe it. It was true.
Here's the thing. I went to a fundraiser, and the fundraiser involved me walking around a parking lot and sampling alcohol from various different
as one does
vendors. And then afterwards, I had sampled all the alcohol, so I went to a bar, got into a conversation with this dude at the bar. And it was fine, just normal conversation. He had a friend with him who was just up and down all night. I'd never talked to this dude. He was just, up, down. I don't know what he was doing. But as I leave, I shake the dude's hand. The dude I was talking with, I was like, hey, nice to meet you, whatever. And then his friend grabs my hand and goes, hey, 2 miles of road, 4 miles of parking lot. And I'm like, that is either the best life advice that I have ever received, or it is the biggest crock of shit, and I don't know which it is, right? Like, I have been I called people, I took to Twitter, I texted friends trying to decipher what this dude meant by 2 miles of road, 4 miles of parking lot. I took it as like, it's peaks and valleys, right? Like you make some strides and then you reach a plateau. I also took it as like it's like a perspective thing. Like some people view it
this
is
where your literacy is getting the better of you. Right? You're trying to read too much into somebody who is clearly just not there.
Someone who, again, like I said, was up and down all night. Don't know what this guy was doing. But he left me with some wise words of wisdom. 2 miles of road, 4 miles of parking lot. I loved it.
Now, here's the thing. For our next true or rubbish statement, you are not somebody who's like on Twitter a whole lot, right? Like,
no,
you try to avoid it, and God bless you for that. I probably should. I don't, because I clearly have all sorts of problems. But that's neither here nor there. We're talking about you right now. And you tweeted something a few days ago.
Oh God.
Which was a picture with a quote. It was a picture. The picture did not have a quote. You put a quote into the into the tweet.
Okay.
From the hit Disney movie Emperor's New Groove.
Right.
Oh, right, the poison for Cusco. The poison chosen
Cusco.
specifically to kill Cusco. Cusco's poison.
Right. Yeah.
Now, the picture itself appears to be a tattoo
Yes.
of that particular vial of Cusco's poison.
Hold up. Ignore my outfit. I'm sweating too, so this is gonna be great. Hold up.
So, oh my
Here we
god.
go. Yeah, there's the tats. Showing off the tats. We got Luis from Bob's Burgers, Radish Spirit.
This was
And then we
true.
got
All after all. Can't believe it. It was true.
Cusco's poison. The poison for Cusco. Yeah. Hell yeah.
I want to be clear. I did not ask Kyle to show me the tattoo.
Had to show off the legs.
It was if you are an audio listener, I'm sorry, you need to go onto YouTube. You need to find about a minute and 9 or an hour and 9 minutes into this podcast. Just jump right there and just wait for Kyle to show off his magnificent legs and his tattoos, including the vial of Cusco tattoo.
Yes.
Roy Collins with the worst take of the night. Want to be thigh doctor? No, you don't. I'm sorry.
Beta Jim, nice tat. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, this place that I've never. That's another story. Jesus. This place was having a flash tattoo sale. I have never. I have 3 tattoos.
Do you have impulse control, Kyle? Do you have impulse control issues?
Well, it was an impulse decision like 3 weeks ago.
Clearly.
So, right.
Oh, okay.
So I had time to think it over, but
I don't know if that makes it better or worse.
Right? Like, no. But no, this place that I went to, again, I've gotten 3 tattoos, all 3 from different places. I was only very drunk for one of them. So this most recent tattoo, my sister and I decided to get matching Cusco tattoos. We show up to this place, and it's just like an office building, just like the most standard office building that you would expect to find like a dentist and like an insurance man, right? Or like a lawyer. You would not expect like this alternative tattoo parlor to be in there. So my sister and I just walk around. There's no one in the parking lot. We're like, are we about to get a tattoo from, a fucking dentist? And we did. Hey, yeah, 2 miles of road, 4 miles of ink. There you go. There you go.
Thank you, Ralph Wilson Sr.
That's all life is,
with the takes from the grave.
That's all life is. 2 miles of road, 4 miles of parking lot. I think this was a great show. Yeah, we dove into my Twitter at the end, but hey, that's
sometimes I have to turn the tables on you.
That's what it's there for.
Not often.
My chair's falling.
It's a good time to end then.
There we go. Thank you guys for watching. Now I look like it. I look like an early or mid-aughts YouTuber, just like what are we going to talk about today? Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the Cover One YouTube channel. It's down there somewhere. Make sure to check out the Cover One iTunes feeds. And subscribe to all of them. They are all independent now, I do believe. So please subscribe to the Cover One Roundup feed and also the Air Raid Hour feed, the Film Room feed. Though, to be fair, Film Room might be a show that's better to watch.
It's better on YouTube. It's hard to watch. It's hard to listen to.
Make sure to, and then Disguise Coverage, Cover One Buffalo Late Night, under review. If the Walls Could Talk, I might be missing a few, but we have a bunch of great shows, basically a show every night. So please check out all of them right on YouTube and the iTunes feed. Make sure to also check out Cover One Pass. What is that? I will tell you as soon as I find this photo. That is the Cover One subscription service, if you will. Become an insider today. Exclusive members only content, in-depth analysis. Again, film breakdowns, access to the Cover One Slack, all that good stuff. Greg Vorst just started a great insider exclusive series. where he is breaking down the top 10 most important bills for the upcoming season, not named Josh Allen. And I actually got to contribute to this series. I was very honored. I am editing it, so even if he didn't ask me, I could have just put my own bullshit in there. I could have just went like Kyle disagrees, which I might end up doing anyway. But no, it's a fun look at the Bills. It's a different look at the Bills, where we're not just like these are the best players. It's like if this player doesn't play well, the Bills are screwed. A bunch of fun stuff there. Again, check out our sponsors, Cover One, code Cover One at BetUS and also Underdog Fantasy. Make sure to follow David on Twitter at.
You can follow me at DFAUXY or at DFoxy. Kyle, where can the people find your lovely tattoos?
Oh, you can find them and me on Twitter at Kyle Silagyi. David, safe travels in Europe. Have fun.
Thank you.
And we will talk to all of you, or I will. David will talk to you guys in a couple of weeks. I will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.